welcome for those who will be arriving probably shortly. Um, it's Friday the what's the date? Friday the 3rd of July, so last week what we did was a demonstration on lettering, especially the where all where the thins join the thicks and all the angle and how all the angles miter into each other on the letters. And what happened was is the it all disappeared into the ether. It didn't save. So I'm going to do it again. I'm going to have another go at doing that. And I'm going to. Last week I demonstrated with a V, but Dean also wanted to. Somebody asked me to redo the V, and I apologise. I've forgotten the name of the person who did, and Dean also asked for some curves as well. Now I'm going to redo the V, and then I'm going to oh hello, it's the postie. Hello. I'm going to redo the E, and then I'll do I'll redo the V, and then if I have time I'll do the E as well, and maybe I draw this A out and do that. Yeah, I think that's it. I think I'll get going. The only thing I would say is that for all those of you who've had classes with me, we've got new classes starting. We've organised. We've got new classes starting in September. So on the 7th of September, we've got a Monday morning class and a Monday evening class. The morning class is 3 hours, and the evening class is 2.5 hours. And all the details are on the website. I'll say that at the end. And we've also got Saturday classes, so 1-day classes, and we've got a kind of monster COVID kind of notice on when you go into looking the details of the classes. We've got details of how we are going to deal with the COVID thingy. Right. So let me come around here to this V. So again, this is a calligraphic or a brushed letter, so in what would happen is a scribe would come and paint the inscription on the stone, and then the guy with the tools would come along and cut the letters afterwards. So and actually the same thing applies today. I have to get somebody to read the instructions that I've drawn out because I can't see them very well. I can easily miss that I've got a letter missing or spelt it wrong or something like that. So I get somebody else to do that. So the reason I say it's a calligraphic letter is, do you want to come around here?
That's right.
Yeah, I'll move it. Calligraphic letter is, this is how the one theory about how serifs developed, but it makes sense. I've seen somebody who's done a brushed letter and they turn out like this, and if you introduce a brush to a piece of paper just like that, it blobs. So you dipped it in the paint or the ink, and then what you do is, what they do is introduce the brush, the flat-ended brush like that, and then it goes down like that, and then this is the same, introduce and then down like that. Now you notice that the angle, you keep the angle the same pretty much, except right at the beginning when you introduce it. And sometimes you see letters like this one, like the K, where you can see that the introduction is the same angle as the as the stroke. So you go introduction in, and then goes down like that, and then it flattens out, and boom, off. And that's what creates the serifs. So down, and then, and it creates the serifs. And you see, so that is that angle, and then if you go down at that angle, it's the thing. And you sometimes see K's or can you see this V is slightly up? Well, that's a nod to the fact that sometimes people introduce the brush at this tilt to the end of the serif sometimes, and it's really pleasing to the eye, and so people have kept it. And so drawn letters have kind of encompassed these kind of ticks that have come from a calligraphic or a brush letter, and they so that's that. Right. So the other thing is that what we did last week was talk about how many people are here, and are there any questions?
2 and
Is
no.
this on its side?
No.
Okay, good. So any queries?
Not yet, no.
Okay. So what I've done here is I've drawn where the mitres might go, which might not be hugely useful actually because it's very difficult to see. But when we do a V-cut letter, so the V-cut goes down here, and then as a V-cut goes down here, and then it joins. And to make it work, there's got to be internal and external mitres. And the thing is thinking about these things too much causes a problem, because actually the mitres do make themselves. I'm wondering whether to try the big letter. Try the big letter. I'll try the big letter. Okay. So this bit of stone, I went and picked up a bit of stone from Albion stonemasons who are just outside Salisbury for a little bird bath that I'm going to make. And Simon Ellaway, who was a mason at Salisbury Cathedral years ago, and now works for Albion stonemasons out near Chilmark. I said, look, have you got a bit of stone that I could use just for demonstrations? And he was kind enough to give me that. So right, okay. So I'm not going to. So because this is so big, so ideally you crack on down the middle. So one of the things that I've noticed about this centre line is that if I put it into the middle, then it's less likely that I'm going to kind of creep over this way or creep over that way, because I've got to be really careful, because my eyes can be on the wonk, and I can look at it one way, and then I tilt my head, and this centre line moves dependent on how I'm looking. Maybe it's because I wear glasses, but so if you kind of establish the centre line, you don't have to necessarily draw it on. But if you establish the centre line straight away, you're less likely to kind of creep over. Right. So now, because this is a big letter, and it's a very shallow bit of stone, I'm not going to go in at the same angle as I would if it was a smaller letter. And actually, you can with a big letter, you can have get away with a shallower cut. And also, as you can see, I haven't chased it. I haven't done any chasing. I'm doing it, it's all chopping it out. But again, the angle's the same that way as that way. You've got the same angle, and then what I will do is keep the same angle here. Okay. So I think what I've noticed is a mistake people make is that they go into they kind of, you can overcut into this angle or overcut into that angle. So one of the things, I know I've cut the big one first, but generally speaking it's wise to cut the smalls first, the thins. The thins first. So this is chasing. The other thing that I was saying is that none of these lines, none of these, you'll see it better on this one, none of these, I mean, that's a bit of a mistake really. Although you can see it, there's not quite as much curve in that line as I would like. That's a bit better. I mean, it's very subtle, but none of these lines are straight. I mean, funnily enough, the end of this line, this tends to be straighter, but there's always a flare this way, and then a waist, but with a V it tends to not. Sometimes there's a little bit of a flare down there, but very little. And then the square end is quite handsome. Now you can, I've drawn these. You can have a. There is a temptation to have this kind of point as well. You can have a point. The point actually goes below the line. Otherwise, when it's up against other letters, it looks weird. It doesn't look right. But a point, an actual point, tends to kind of look wrong, or it can. The eye doesn't pick it up, or something like that. I'm not quite sure. But what we were encouraged to do when drawing letters was to give it a little bit of a roundel, a little bit. Now that makes life interesting when you're doing this little mitre, because you've got to do a kind of curved shape. You know, you have the mitre running down to here, yeah, and then you have this kind of. It's not a flat plane. It's a kind of curved plane that runs into these mitres. So that can be quite interesting. Anyway, I'll carry on doing this one. Get in there. All right. So I've kind of run that. So there you go, there's your, that mitre runs down to there, because that angle joins that angle. Slightly wonky, but we can tidy that up. And then, what we've got an interesting thing happening here, is that this angle needs to extend into the bottom. Into the bottom of this valley. Yeah. So that angle stays, and then because there's space, it drops into the bottom of that valley. Now this, so I've got that, so I'm keeping that angle the same. Smaller chisel to get into the gap. An even smaller chisel. Here we go. So I'm using it. This is quite a yeah. What were we playing with before? Is it this one? There you go. Yeah, look, when I do that, yeah, it's funny, as I change my view, the angles, I'm quite careful because the angles change. Now I would prefer, I quite like to have a wider chisel so that I do it all in one, but I don't. I've left my inch masonry chisel in the workshop, I think, or it's in a bucket somewhere. Yeah. Yeah, kind of reasonable, not too bad. To kind of like that. Just about see all the angles, and it's yeah. Try to keep those angles the same. Let's put it out like that. Right. Should I draw those on? Are you going to draw those on? There you go. Get an idea of the mitres. Oh, hello, Cos. Right. Okay, so, so I don't, any queries? No. There you go. Yeah. Yeah. Something like that. Right. Hmm? Okay, now so there's those kind of is how those mitres kind of fit together. You have that one, that plane kind of extending down into the bottom of that valley, and then this end kind of intersecting. That's nice. No, intersecting with that mitre, intersecting with this plane, intersecting with that plane and that plane, and you can jig it about a bit and change things a little bit, and if you were to have this, this extend down to here and have a curved thing, then this whole plane would be curved. You'd carve from that mitre line, from that, and then you'd have this kind of curved. I'd be inclined to make it a little shallower actually, just there. So you have this kind of curved plane there, and you would carve that, which is kind of relatively it's kind of tricky. You could do it with a little gouge, or I would be inclined to just pop a chisel in there and then kind of twist it. So there's that. Now this one I'm going to draw this little lowercase a, and we'll draw it back in. I sketched it this morning, and you can see that the same rules apply with the thicks and the thins. I'll do that. Same rules apply with the thicks and the thins. There's your thin, and then your thick, and then your thin, and then your thin, and then your thick, and then your thin. So you've got this running, and there's kind of rules about, the rules need to be kind of maintained, or most of the time anyway, because sometimes you so with this E, for example, what's happened is with this E, for example, is that they've assumed instead of having the angle there, because like that, it tipped the central point over, so you get your thick and your thin and your thick, and what happens with this, the reason this has been done is because it's more pleasing to the eye, because if you do it like that with I've got these two. Oh, that's good. So if you do it, so we imagine that there's your angle, yeah. So if you do it like that, yeah, what it looks like if you do it with an E, yeah, it looks like the E is tipping backwards a bit, lowercase e. It looks like the E is kind of heavy here, and it looks like it can look like it kind of tips back a bit. Can you see that? Does that make sense? So they've turned and the same thing applies to O's sometimes. I know that some lettergetters actually think that a vertical O with the thicks there and the thins there is a stronger shape than one of those O's like that, with the thick there and the thins there. Kind of
Dean says rules are there to be broken, Henry.
They are. They are. Rules are, you know, and if you don't look right, it's not right. You know. So okay, now so back to this A, back to these curves. I don't know whether Dean's there.
Yes.
Oh, Dean, great,
Yeah.
nice one. What I was going to say was there anything in particular that you wanted to look at, Dean, as far as the curved shapes concerned? No. Oh, wait, I can put it on cutting. We'll do this A, and so I'm going to cut the thins.
A cutting of the mitres, please. That's what he's asked for.
Okay, all right. Well, look. So the easiest way to get the mitres right, initially, I would suggest cutting the thins first on these, because okay, with this A, so you've got this thin here.
He said, obviously I'm late, so I may have missed that.
No worries. No, I was I haven't touched it because I know you wanted to have a look at this. So look what I'm doing now. I'm cutting the thins first. So the angle, the kind of rule is you know, you just got to be disciplined about the angle that you keep. So the angle remains the same. So as the stroke gets bigger, the valley gets deeper. I'm sure there's a song in that somewhere. So look, so I'll cut the two thins, and I'm going to cut this thin as well. Well, cut this little kind of serify thing into the thick, and then I think sometimes, and then I'm kind of going shallow. I'm going to stop there. So now the other side. So we've kind of created a centre line. Now what I'm going to do is, so I'm going to run this up here. Be a bit careful that I don't. So what I would say is those mitres. I'm going to do this. I'm going to take time. Let's take this. That looks like it needs. Right, I made a kind of. So look, so what I'm going to do is the mitre will make it itself. There. And I'm going to just roll the chisel over. There. So there, the mitre has made itself. That's how, you know, that little small mitre. I've cut the thin beforehand, and I've just kind of chopped down. You know, I've chopped down over the line, protecting those arises. So I've cut it so I'm protecting the arises. If I had to chase it across, then it's likely that I would have blown this aris off here. This one would have been okay. This one this mitre would have been okay, but this probably would have blown off, you know, as I chased across there. So I kind of came over here, and you know, you can roll over there, like that, or just chop straight down, or stab. All kind of rather a set of masonry terms that aren't brutal. So I'm going to murder this letter now. So there, you got that. This chisel's a little bit small for this job. So notice I'm getting, as it gets, I'm making sure that I go uphill. The base of the valley goes uphill as the stroke gets narrower.
Dean says that makes sense. Quite interested to see how the lowercase e looks, but I think that's what we missed last week, sadly. Sorry,
well,
we'll go into.
Well, no, I mean, no, I've done that bit. I've done that bit. What I'll do is come over here, and I'll quickly show you the mitres on the lowercase e here. So here's a bigger version of it. So can you see? There's the mitre on the cross piece, the thin into the thick. And what I did was I cut that before. Before I'd finished this thick, I'd cut the line into here so that I could then chop down over it, protecting these two arises. And then with this end, because this angle, you run this angle continue into the thick, so it becomes deeper, and then this mitre line is created as this short side intersects with that, and these internal, that's external, and these internal mitre lines make up the depth. But then they make themselves, as long as you're kind of disciplined about the angles and don't try and kind of second guess it. You just continue with the line. So I'll quickly cut this letter, quickly cut it in, and then we'll pack it in, because I'm aware that we're running over time, and one of the concerns that I have is that if we run over time, it just won't work. Let's see what. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
See there. I'll concentrate on this area. It's too big. No, this is not this one. No, that one. This one. Right, okay. Right.
He put perfect. The thicker end is what I was interested in.
Hey.
He said perfect. The thicker end is what I was interested in.
So look. Make my centre line. And I can I saw a guy do this with an air gun. Seriously impressed. So look, the mitre. So there's our V cut, and even this one, wibbly wobbly, and I'm hurrying it a bit, which I shouldn't. There you go, that runs into there, right? that runs into there, so I run it through, and then if I want to make the mitre, there, straight away, and that's done. I mean, obviously I'm going to carry on, I'm going to cut around here. Got one here. Down up. Something like that. So I actually kind of gently kind of skated across the face of it, so I reduced any kind of the risk of pulling those irises out. There you go. That one, and then this end is you just go in here. There. So when it's smaller, I've got the same angle as that, so I'm going in there. I know where it's kind of supposed to be going, so I've got that one going in there. I know that that angle is the same as that angle there, so that bops in there, and then we have created those 3 mitres, and the rest is just kind of tidying it up, really, or joining it up. And ideally I would have cut that cut this thin beforehand, so I wasn't kind of wasting time, you know, so I had somewhere to go with it, and you know, you just go around the corner.
So thank you.
That's fine. I think we should pack it in.
Yeah.
There's plenty to do. Have a lovely week, and next week we'll be in the workshop. There's the classes for the autumn for September are up on the website. Monday morning classes aren't up on the website yet. They will be. They're not. The reason they're not is because I've got students who had half a class, and I want them to be able to book on before I open them to everybody. And Monday
Evenings, yeah. Monday evenings are on the website.
Monday evenings and Monday mornings. Monday evenings are on definitely, and Monday and Saturdays we're doing day courses on a Saturday as well.
One a month.
So one in September, one in October, one in November. So they're in the second week of each month, whatever Saturday that is. So thanks everybody for watching, and have a cracking time. And next week we'll be in the workshop, so you'll see it. Cheers, bye.